So let's look at those three examples. That's an example with a poverty trap. That's an example that doesn't have one. That's another example that doesn't have one. What is different between the one example with a poverty trap and the one which doesn't have one? The two. Yes. Can you tell me your name?
Oh, Zachary. It crosses the 45-degree line twice.
Exactly. And well, twice or 3 times. It crosses the 45-degree line once from below. So the rule is that you're going to have a poverty trap if the capacity curve, or whatever is the curve between the income from work and the inherited income, crosses the 45-degree line at least one from below. That is, there is at least one unstable equilibrium where you're crossing from below. And that is necessary for having a poverty trap. So what you need, in other words, is to have a zone where income is accelerating, and this zone must be at a place where the income was relatively low to start with. And it needs to accelerate enough that it's becoming high to start with. In other words, there needs to be a zone where if you're below this zone, you're making less tomorrow than you started from today. And when you're on the right of this zone, you're making more tomorrow than you started from today. And you need to have this point. Otherwise, there is no poverty trap. All right? So that's the mathematical expression of it. And now, in a sense, the game that we are going to play all over this class is to be looking for, are we in this situation where whatever is the relationship between income today and income tomorrow crosses the 45-degree line from below, or are we not in this situation? And now we are in a much better position to ask the question that Zach asked at the beginning of the question, which is, are we really believing that there could be a poverty trap based on food? I didn't want to answer his question to start with because I needed some time to specify the question in a much more precise way, which is now we can re-ask the question and say, is it really possible that the relationship between the calories I consume and my strength has this specific form where it intersects the 45-degree line from below? And how does that intersect with the fact that I choose how much to consume? Because of course, if there is indeed a strong relationship between work capacity, between the calories consumed and the work capacity, then people should try and get out of it by eating as much as possible when they're very poor. So to the extent that people can choose how much to consume, how much food to eat, they should eat more when they are very poor in order to try and pull themselves to the right of this point. And when they're richer, then it wouldn't really matter. So they would eat less. So that would create a force that goes against an S shape for the capacity curve. So we have to see, and that goes back to your question, where do you get it from? Where we get it from for looking at the data and looking at to what extent people who have more money eat so much more, and to what extent people who eat so much more are so much more productive. And that's what we are going to do. We are going to do it for food, but now that we understood the principle for food, we are going to do it for food, we are going to do it for education, we are going to do it for health, we are going to do it for savings, for businesses, etc. Yeah.
To go back to the example which we started the class, would you say that, I forgot his name, but that the man was in an unstable equilibrium, since as soon as he lost his job, he seemed to go down and not be able to eat enough to get another job, etc.?
Right, so that's a very good question. What we can try now is to try and reinterpret Mr. Solin's story in the context of this. And you could say, well, perhaps it was exactly something like that. Perhaps he was maybe even, so what would have happened to him? Let's see, I want to, oops. What would have happened to him? So we discussed that one thing that might have happened to him is that something happened to the capacity curve, right? We were saying that the coincident increase in the wage, decrease in the wage and increase in the food prices means that the capacity curve tend to move to the southwest. So assume that Paxoline was at the high equilibrium up there, right? But right there. And then the curve moves slightly to the right. Then he might suddenly have going down, then with the same income, he suddenly is now below what would correspond to the new equilibrium, and it would start falling down, 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 down. And once it starts going down, there is no going up again. It could also have eliminated, we might also be in a situation where at the beginning there was just one equilibrium, so we were, for example, in this situation. And then once the curve moves down, there are now two equilibria, including plus the unstable one. So we may have started from a situation where people were productive enough that they were always moving up. And then with the increase in food prices and the decrease in wages, that curve shifts down, and now it creates two equilibria. So some people get trapped like he was. What was interesting in Paxoline's villages is that in the same villages, I met people who were happily eating enough. So it seemed that there was both kinds, which seems to make you think that there was these two things were coexisting. So maybe what happened with him is that we started from a situation like that, and then we moved left, and we end up with this double situation. That's possible.